that's a gift because I've gone through my whole life wishing for that lifestyle, but that's completely gone. Like, it's gone.
Do you feel better for that?
I feel more relaxed and at peace, and can focus on humans and people and not stuff. Perfection for me has always been a big struggle for me. It's always been something that I have struggled a lot with. And I don't want to bring that into my artwork because that's where I can clear my mind and be free and express myself. So I try to stay away from making something completely symmetrical because if it were like that, it would get out of hand. It's different having mental illness as a male over 30. Partially, I think it's because of we have all these serial killer documentaries, and there is like that stigma about like people immediately think about violence and danger when they hear like a 30-year-old mentally ill male. We talk about like males should open more and speak more about it. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is there's somebody to receive it.
Have a look. How did it look? Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Lloyd and this is the 21st Century Tattoo. Sweet. Roblake.
Hiya.
Nice to finally meet you. I'm glad we got this all sorted, got it in the diary. Thanks for coming up from Brighton as well.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Let's get cracking. I mean, it's good to sit down with you. I've got so much to ask you really. We'll start with an easy one. How old were you when you got your first tattoo?
So you have to be 18 I'm from Denmark, so you have to be 18. So I think like immediately after I turned 18, like I got my first tattoo in a small shop, and it was done like, the guy who was tattooing me, who was like smoking a cigarette while he was tattooing me. It was a whole experience. It's very, it could be a bit scary walking in, getting a first tattoos. Like, people have to remember, like, no one is born with tattoos, so like there's no stupid questions, and like I always try to make people at ease. Like, I got a lot of tattoos, but I also been getting tattoos for many years. Like, but yeah.
So true. That's a really important point as well. Like there's, I think clients put a lot of trust in us.
Yeah.
I think people are quite quick. I was speaking with the previous guest about this. Like, people are quite quick to forget how much trust is placed in us.
Yeah. And you forget like things that we might take as obvious is not like for obvious. When I first started getting tattooed, I thought it was like like a printer. Like, this is the image. Like, it's not like. It's a craft. It's a human craft,
Yeah, it's a completely different art form. You're very creative. I mean, I know you kind of explore a lot of different creative mediums. We'll get onto that a little bit. Touching a little bit about getting tattooed back in your hometown or back in Copenhagen.
So I lived
Denmark.
In Denmark. Yeah. I've lived different places in Denmark. So I'm from like a small town, Jutland and Sjælland. Where the capital is. So I first got tattooed like in the more country side, like north of Jutland.
We were speaking a bit before we started recording about like how and like tattoo culture back there. I mean, and maybe what was that like when you first got your first tattoo and kind of and like how that culture maybe was or still is today?
So I haven't lived home in Denmark for 8 years. So obviously a lot have changed. Like, in general, tattooing has probably in the last 8 years changed more than it has in the last 200 years, like massively, partially because of social media. Back then, like I haven't lived home for 8 years. So I can only speak there, but it is like a bit of a time machine back because it's like it is very gang controlled. If you open the shop, you would get a knock on the door by like biker gangs and stuff. They would control it. Like, I know a lot of friends.
It was quite controlled. Yeah.
I know a lot of friends who would like tattoo off a debt or something like that. And I have also been like, when I started and searching for my apprenticeship, there was some like apprenticeship that I luckily got out of before it started, like on the trial, where I could see, okay, this is gonna cause trouble later down the road. Like, I don't want to be owing someone or controlling something. So I found like an independent artist who was like, he don't take shit for anyone, for like, he's not like a biker or a gang or anything like that. So I think once they could feel the fear, like, people are willing to pay. But he like, I mean, he's from the street, you know, like he's had a rough time. Like, I got a lot of respect for him.
Is this the artist who you kind of originally apprenticed under?
Yeah. I didn't ever start tattooing with the other. Sure, I wouldn't even say it was apprenticeship. It was more just like doing stuff for them. But he took me under his wing, and like, I'm a very loyal person, and I might not agree with everything he did, but then again, I mean, he's from the street, you know. Maybe not God's best child, but I have a lot of respect because he's the reason I'm tattooing today.
Yeah. How did you originally meet? I guess, like, what I'd love to know is maybe taking it back. Has art maybe always been a bit of a constant in your life? And what was that decision to get involved in the industry, and how did that kind of first manifest itself?
So I started quite late with tattooing, really. Like, I had done art like most of my life, and went to art schools and studied art history, and experienced with different mediums like video, installation art, painting, sculptures. But the thing is, it's hard to, if you like to draw all the time and paint, it's hard to be an artist and make a living off it. I mean, I have an art teacher, and he would sell like a painting for, I don't know, 20 grand. And that seems like a lot, but then it takes 3 months to paint. And then he had to pay like 50% to the gallery, you know, then it becomes like...
Yeah, well, that's literally exactly what I was told when because I had always shown a massive interest in wanting to do that. And it was like, well, that's the only thing you can do, is you just paint and you try and sell them in galleries. And it's a really unstable income.
And also I kind of got tired of the whole art environment. It's like, it's something else for sure. It's a lot of like red wine and looking at stuff that's the ego of an artist. Like, it's just like a lot of like...
Is it pretentious?
Yeah. I got tired of it. So I got into graffiti a lot, which the guy who learned me how to tattoo, he was quite a well-known graffiti artist from Copenhagen. And there is a certain set of rules, like unwritten rules about graffiti. And I like that. I've always been attracted to subcultures and secret codes and stuff like that. It's always been something that attracted me, something that was a little bit dangerous, I guess.
Yeah.
I've always been a very nervous person as a kid, and was afraid of everything. So I kind of went the complete other way. Like, I love being the fly on the wall and put myself in situations that maybe not be completely safe.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, like, it sounds like we had slightly similar ways, and like when you mentioned a little bit about how you kind of did a bit of an apprenticeship, like, and you kind of started in one place and moved to another. Maybe where on that journey do you feel like you kind of learn the most, like, in that process, like, and how did you kind of really start to realize your kind of style, I guess?
I always draw a lot and stuff. And I would say that's the good thing about social media. I didn't think like I could be a tattooer because I would see like... It was like a gift and a curse. Like, I find it very hard to draw stuff, even that's not my own, without you be able to see that it's my lines and shading. And that's a good and a bad thing, I guess. But then social media, you see artists experiment more, and that kind of like, okay, I can do this as well. and I was kind of in a point in my life where I was lost, and that's also why I'm so grateful why he took me in, because I don't know where I would have been without him. Like,
how long were you there and with him and kind of what was that kind of that stage of your life in tattooing like?
Well, it was mad. Like, we had like bulletproof vests behind the disc, the counter, and like axe and weapons and stuff like that. Luckily, it never got into use. But just
is this because of the fact that there was a lot of rivalry between shops and stuff?
I guess so. I mean, I wasn't part of it, but I think like he definitely was around those people, and also like they obviously come and get tattooed. Like it would be like that. So you are exposed to that, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. You might not agree with it, but I like the dangerous side of and the outcast and the outcast side of it. It's just it's what always attracted.
Right, quick one about Ghost cartridges, the Hex carts. Now these are the 3rd generation Ghost cartridge, best selling as well. Instantly recognizable, bright green. Also the first in the UK to be introduced with the silicone foregrip system. We mentioned it a bit before we started recording, and it's like tattooing now has become so popular, mainstream. You know, it's definitely getting there, and it's more out of the kind of underground scene. Maybe that like rebelliousness. I mean, it's still got that level, but it's probably nowhere near to the extent that it was. What's your kind of opinion on how tattooing, on what tattooing has become compared to maybe what it was and what the values of it were?
Yeah. So I think because of social media and like everything artistic is so overexposed, and there like subcultures doesn't really exist anymore. Like everything is so available, and I mean, I think I could let it get to my head, and I think a lot of older tattooers would let it get to their head and like destroy their creativity. So I think, I mean, it would be silly to think that you can make like stop time or like say, hey, hold it here. The world is gonna evolve, and it's not always to your liking, but you're gonna be happier. Like, because you can like, I mean, you can hate how it went. Like I definitely don't. When I think about tattooing, I don't get the same feeling anymore. It doesn't mean the same as it did 8 years ago. It's a different vibe. It's a different universe, for sure. And
have you noticed that maybe more so in the UK?
No, I think it's in general, and I think we see it in everything, like in every artistic aspect. It's so available, and you know, like everyone is printing T-shirts and everyone is doing film, and you know, like it's just so much of everything that it kind of loses a little bit of its magic. But who am I to tell what people can do?
I definitely understand what you're saying and where it's coming from, because it almost feels like that, and I get that. Like I've worked in, and I did an apprentice, like my apprenticeship was in like old 90s like studios. I've worked in, I had quite a traditional apprenticeship. I like that, and to be honest with you, that was probably the original thing that drew me to the to tattooing, was that like that was the appeal for me, and it definitely feels like it's losing that for sure.
But I'm kind of split, because as well, like, but then social media has also made it available that I can do a very my own style.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, and it's like where would we be now without that? Like, and how much it's open, like the access to information, how much more. Like the stuff that's now possible with machines and inks and needles, it's all thanks to that.
But if I could choose, no social media. Like if I would trade that, like in the whole world, yeah, for sure, I wouldn't think about it for a second. I would trade that because I don't think it's healthy. It's one of those things, and I'm guilty of it myself. It's a constant stroke of your own ego, and I don't think it's healthy to have a world where everyone is like constantly, secretly competing with each other. And I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. But stuff has happened in my life where that ego is slowly being killed off. And I think that's where you become a more forgiving person and a more true to yourself once you let that go, for sure.
Yeah.
You become a more kind human.
Yeah, I'll definitely, I want to speak to you about that for sure, and we'll kind of get onto that. What I would love to speak, just pulling it back to tattooing a little bit, and like your unique style itself. I mean, you yourself have previously described your style as expressionistic. You mentioned that you're focusing more on the expression rather than perfection, and that it's your rebellion against otherwise controlled and systematic thoughts. I think that's a really good way of kind of explaining how you kind of create those pieces. And talk to me a little bit, because I look at your work is so vastly different to mine, but what I really like about it is you are able to kind of create those elements of pieces and kind of compose stuff with all of the elements that make those pieces what they are, without it being overly complicated and detailed. So
a lot of it like is my artwork made into a tattoo, because I obviously have that traditional apprenticeship. So I know okay, you cannot do something that's that detailed, or because then it would merge together. But the whole style of it, of imperfection, I think, because I am diagnosed with severe OCD. So perfection for me has always been a big struggle for me. It's always been something that I have struggled a lot with. And I don't want to bring that into my artwork, because that's where I can clear my mind and be free and express myself. So I try to stay away from making something completely symmetrical, because if it were like that, it would get out of hand. I also don't edit my photos, only the sharpness, because it would get out of hand. It would become like an obsession, and with how to edit, and also feel like it speaks more people after getting tattooed, they were like, oh, it's really red, because they don't get exposed to hey, we're doing damage to the skin. Of course, it's
absolutely
red. And people don't have that expectation, because they only see highly edited photos.
It's so true, and that's what it's become, it's
but yeah, I mean, this is only my own opinion. I cannot speak for everyone. People are allowed to do whatever. Yeah, it's more true to reality, which we are stepping further and further away from. But the whole style of it, I had an art teacher who would have these different practices. And I still use some of those practices, like forms, the shapes. I would, if you look at my tattoos, they would have some of the similar shapes in it. There is some certain shapes that I use over and over again. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest compliment I can get is when people can see. I can see it's your lines. Mm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a special thing, especially with tattooing, to be able to do that. And that's always also been my goal. But it is, like I said, a gift and a curse, because I find it hard to draw something without people seeing, oh, that was you that drew that. The whole expressionist aspect of it was more because I line and shade with an 18 round shader. I only use that. sometimes an 11.
I was going to ask you actually.
Yeah. That's the only thing. Like when you see a tattoo, it's done with the same needle, all of it. Obviously, a new one every client.
No,
but for lining and shading, it's the same. And if you look at a round shader, it's like cut. It's like flat, where a liner, it would go to a point. And it's the same what the expressionist artist would do with the pencils, where you would have like this movement that would literally cut the pencils. So it would be like flat, and you would be able to see the brush strokes and stuff.
Okay.
So in a way, it's kind of like the same.
Is that something that you've developed over time? Were you shown how to do that? And did you always start doing that from the moment you started tattooing?
Pretty quickly, yeah. Pretty quickly.
How many years into it are you now?
8 years. I find it interesting how can you be if you curve, like if you tilt the machine, are you able to do like a thin small line with an 18 round shader and stuff like that? I find it very interesting, and maybe try to like shade out the line instead of doing a solid line to the next line and stuff like that. I like to experiment with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you feel like you've achieved and I know you producing the work that you feel is like most true to how you envisage it creatively? And if like, where can you kind of see your work maybe going? Do you want to explore any other avenues in tattooing?
Well, I used to do color when I first started and stuff like, and walk-ins and stuff like that. I still do a little bit of walk-in, but I'm always evolving. Like I've definitely taken, it has been more like naive or ignorant or whatever you would call it. Definitely at one point it was more. I feel like I'm closer to what kind of art I would make and paintings. But obviously there is that curiosity, which I think is important, like to explore like parts that are only like gray wash now, where before I would only use black. Sometimes I would use gray color. Like it's when it comes down to it, like it's always like I just like the big lines and like the stippling and the shading. It's where I feel most myself. And it's I like to create that universe or space like that people get the feeling and they know like that's a Roblake tattoo. It's very important for me.
Yeah. No, it's you can see in your work, it's most definitely yours. Bold, it's it's clear and simple for sure. Don't forget to head over to Instagram or YouTube, get in the comment section and let me know who you want to hear from in the next episode. Talking a little bit about like your journey, you're very open about sharing maybe your stories and struggles throughout your journey. I noticed on socials you kind of shared your trip to Turkey towards maybe the end of the lockdowns and maybe kind of like the experience that you had at that time. What was that period of time like for you in your life, and maybe how was that whilst also kind of trying to juggle tattooing as well?
Well, it's like the last 3 years has definitely been the hardest years of my life total. I have struggled still with mental health, like majority OCD and a mixed personality disorder. I sadly ended up in a mental hospital. And it is a big thing to put out there for sure. It's not really. It's more for myself. It's an egoistic thing for me to do. Like I get it out of my head. It's there. I do get why people write books or have seminars where they talk about it. I do get it. It's like a personal healing thing. If it can inspire and help others, I think there's certain ways to do it. I definitely don't like the whole fashionable side of having a disorder and people. I think again it's so over exaggerated, and when it kind of loses its importance when it's so much, and in art like it's fashionable. Like I made a rule to myself when I started tattooing. I will never tattoo anything suicidal, and I've never done it, and I won't do it. I think it's I don't think it's morally correct but that's me personally. For example, to tattoo some suicidal message on a young girl, like I don't think that's right. To glorify it in that way, and people can say, but yeah, that's my way to like heal and stuff. Let's talk some years down the line and see if you still feel the same way.
I feel like it's maybe different when you're then involving another person to kind of do that with you, you know what I mean? And that's what it's like when you're bringing a tattoo artist into it. Yeah, I guess I completely agree.
But it's more to like I don't want to earn money on people's sadness like that. We can talk about it for sure, or we can have a real conversation. But I don't like the whole fashionable statement of it. So when I write things, it's I try to do it in a pretty straight up anonymous way. What do you say? Like I don't know. I try to do it in a non-fashionable way. I definitely don't do it to get attention. It is truly
authentic, yeah,
for my own help as well, and also I feel like it helps getting it out of the brain. And if that can help others, that you can become something, even though you have struggles, and one thing I've noticed definitely after turning 30 is it's different having mental illness as a male over 30. Partially, I think it's because of we have all these serial killer documentaries, and there is like that stigma about like people immediately think about violence and danger when they hear like a 30-year-old mentally ill male. We talk about like males should open more and speak more about it. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is there somebody to receive it? Is there something who can people handle a guy crying? Like the amounts of times I've been crying and showing my feelings where you don't get a feedback from people. It's I don't think people are ready for it yet. Like
I was literally just about to say, it's almost as if society expects men of a certain age to behave a certain way.
I mean, we talk about like, oh, speak it openly, but I think it's more how do people take it? Like, how do they react to it? And I've always been quite open about my feelings. I'm a very vulnerable guy. That might be the only thing. Like, if I were to regret anything about face tattoos, it would be that people maybe have a perception sometimes like, oh, he's dangerous or he's criminal. I'm just like a nerd that's like artistic and really into tattooing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about like kind of struggles and showing people there. I mean, you're like, I think you say that your goal has been to show people that you can overcome things and turn your weaknesses into strengths. I think that's so important. But you mentioned in there about like face tattoos. Do you think, and have you ever come across any heavy judgment for having face tattoos and kind of being pretty heavily covered?
For sure, like countless episodes. But I mean, what do you expect when you see something that's out of the ordinary? It would be ignorant for me to not expect that. But I've always like been like a rebel and had like mohawk when I was like a teenager and stuff like that. So I've always been quite used to it, and I would probably lie if there wasn't an aspect of like liking it and getting a high from it, for sure. Like. But what it boils down to, like, I think it's pretty.
If you had to say, what would you say is the general public perception.
Well,
So then like normal life, maybe it's different in different places. Obviously, you live in Brighton. Do you think it maybe less?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, in Denmark, it's illegal to tattoo faces and hand and necks. It's not illegal to have it, obviously, because
yeah, otherwise people would be getting.
But once something is illegal, then it automatically is viewed as something associated with a criminal act.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see when I go to Denmark, especially my hometown, that's like small, like it's
people view you then as a criminal.
Yeah, or something like a bad egg or something like it's definitely different. Where when I moved to Sweden, especially Stockholm, you see a lot of people actually with face tattoos. It was a lot different there, and especially Brighton. I mean, I don't notice it anymore at all. But you will get the occasionally old lady coming up, touching your face and stuff like that. That's a bit weird. But I mean, also remember, like, it's just a different time. Like, it's a completely different world for her, for example. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's not normal to just like touch a stranger's face. But I mean, I think I've gotten more like forgiving over the years, and like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Absolutely. I would love to ask you about the Made It tattoo.
Yeah.
What was the decision for this piece in particular? I mean, there's plenty that I could ask you about. I spoke a bit before we recorded about the butterfly, which I think is incredible. But the Made It piece, maybe talk me through a little bit about the kind of message or the meaning behind that piece.
Yeah, so the Made It is made by my good mate William Rose from Stockholm. It's more about making it through life and made it through like hard times. There's also an aspect like I made it in life, like I can provide myself completely with stuff that I've drawn completely, like and as again where the importance of like I do feel like I have a certain style. And that's like a big compliment to myself that you can create a living completely for yourself, like so in that aspect, but mostly like made it through hard times. It also was like a security of I couldn't allow myself to become homeless or fail, because I feel like it would be a failure to have made it tattooed on the face and
what, I'm become homeless?
No, not because there's nothing wrong to being homeless, but it was like or being depressed, being like low in life. It would kind of like every time I looked in the mirror, like you gotta do this, like and there would come bumps in your life over time, like different in your life. Like I said, like the last 3 years been the worst. Like I thought I had experienced the worst stuff in my life, but you never know. Like you never know what's gonna come.
Do you feel like maybe in those low moments, and I'm only speaking from personal experience as well, like in those low moments, like it's good to look at that and remind yourself and give yourself maybe a sense of perspective that you feel that maybe, you know, I have got to a point, you know, and I have achieved maybe what I wanted to achieve, even though I feel the way I do, and maybe it will pass, you know. I think it's great. Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to live by. It's definitely something that I'm trying to learn a little bit more as well, because I can have moments where I feel particularly down, and I think removing myself from a situation and kind of observing a bit of perspective, and understanding that actually things aren't as bad, and do you know what I mean? Do you feel like you've maybe achieved success in whatever way that you would frame that, and And do you maybe feel like you've achieved what you want to achieve in life?
I have. I do feel like I've achieved what I wanted, for sure. But like I said, like my ego has died a lot. I'm a different person than I was 3 years ago, like very different. For the better in that sense. I think in that way, like look at the positive sides of stuff. Like you would often find the most love from people who've been like through hard times. And I try to surround myself with people like that. It was very hard for me to be around after coming out of a mental hospital. It was very hard for me to be around, quote unquote, like normal people or people with no mental, because you are completely stripped down in there. Like you are at your most vulnerable. Like I don't think I've even been that close with a partner. It's completely you're completely naked, like everyone. You are at your lowest, and a stranger's gonna see it, and everyone is at their lowest. So it was very hard for me to come back. But I feel like I'm a better person because
of that, and because you went through that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some struggles with it.
Yeah, you mentioned. I think you'd mentioned that you didn't have a particularly positive, or some parts of it weren't a particularly positive experience in there.
I think there was an aspect of the Stanford prison experiment, for sure.
Really?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's something that affected me. Like I have been in mental hospitals in Denmark as well. It's very different in UK. Very different. I've never been to prison, but you could imagine there is maybe like one or two in prison where you don't know like what their next move is because they're a little bit off there. Imagine everyone is like that. But I think that ego and that like insight, human, like it's something that I'm happy I found so early on, because that might be some people might find it later on when they're like 60 or something like that. I think it's a more true to yourself kind of living, like it's a more forgiving and loving way of living, and every materialistic thing kind of like dissolve, like it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. So you can and you just focus on your creativity and humans and people.
Yeah, it's so easy, isn't it, to get caught up nowadays in what kind of maybe general perception of success. Again, I think, to quote you again, but I think you mentioned about how you used to think that maybe money and fame were so important. I guess I would love to maybe know from you, what do you think maybe now, or what's the biggest lesson you've maybe learned in life, and what you think maybe now is most important? Probably what you were just saying.
Well, I've always been like, oh, I want to be rich, I want to be famous and all that, like, which I think a lot of people like have that in them and stuff like that.
People will lie and say that they don't, but
yeah,
they definitely do. Yeah, for sure. And that's, again, seeing a good thing coming from a bad thing. I had a period in life where there was access to money. And I like tried, like, you know, staying at expensive hotels in Los Angeles, swimming pools on top, all that shit. The thing is, often like successful, rich people are not really people you want to be around, because I find the human connection is not there for me as much as it was with the people that was also in the mental hospital, for example. It kind of like, it doesn't become important, all these success, money thing. It just
completely loses every value. So that's a gift, because I've gone through my whole life wishing for that lifestyle, but that's completely gone. Like, it's gone.
Do you feel better for that?
I feel more relaxed and at peace, and can focus on humans and people, and not stuff. Not stuff.
Yeah. What was there like a moment? What was that like kind of turning point? Was it in your career, mate, where you thought like, I don't want that anymore?
That was after the
visit to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got rid of all my stuff. All my stuff. Like 90% of my stuff. Couldn't deal with having stuff around me. It's just not important. Like, I've always been like a collector and stuff. I do still have, like, I'm starting to like accumulate a little bit now. Where to burn down tomorrow, I don't care. It's not important for me. It's not important like it used to be. And it's incredibly freeing to feel that way. Because then you can start focusing on what's really important in life.
Yeah, absolutely. What for you then is the most important thing in life?
Human interactions.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what we're doing now, I guess.
Yeah.
It's good. That's why I love this. That's why I love kind of sitting down and chatting with people I always have. Talking again a bit more about tattooing. I guess I would love to know, really, in your career, at least in your tattooing career, what's your like the thing you're most proud of in your kind of tattooing career? I mean,
well, I was. There's multiple things. Like, obviously, I'm very proud that when people come tell me like, you have a specific style, I haven't seen that before. But things as being in a tattoo magazine, working at a convention, it's something I like. I don't forget. Those were things like I dreamed about as like an 18-year-old. Like I would never think that would happen. Stuff like that. It's. I still think it's very cool. I like it, and I'm proud of it. Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the stuff like that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in now in tattooing. It's like when I first started, I would never have dreamt of it. I wouldn't have thought it would ever happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you quite spiritual? And do you believe in spirituality and maybe kind of like manifestation and kind of putting thoughts out there and kind of into the universe for things to come back to you?
I think I talked to my mom recently. Like, I think as I get older, like, you become a little bit more spiritual. I don't know if it's because you get closer to the end or what it is. But I've always been like,
once you hit 30,
I've always been like anti-religion and like atheist and stuff like that. I definitely believe in some energy and like energy in earth and energy in trees and plants and species. Like, I would like to believe that there is some sort of you become one with the planet when it's your time.
Yeah.
I think it's all about energy. It might not be like, because what is living and what is life? What defines that? Like, could you end up maybe being part of the grid of like now it becomes very like tinfoil hat, but you know, like, could you be part of like what are they called, like fungus? You know, like, do you become part of like the earth? Like, that?
Yeah, I presume so. I mean, I feel like. Oh, don't quote me, but I think there was, I can't remember who it was, but it's energy, I feel like, and that there's a transfer of energy. Energy isn't maybe necessarily created, but it's transferred. And I definitely believe in maybe not like a second life, but I think everything kind of, it's a circle of life, isn't it, for sure?
Well, you do like transfer that energy, and when if you get buried, like you would you feed the earth, like, you know, like and
then new things are created, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I mean, that is like, we could go into like a deep hole there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I'll tell you what, this is a good point for me to maybe referring back to a little bit about what we were just talking about. A good time for me to give you the question that was left for you from the previous guest.
Yeah.
That was...
What has been the most pivotal moment in your tattoo career?
When people started say, you can do whatever you want on me. Like that was a big, I feel like that was that's like a big honor, like to that the client have that much trust that they just want like a mark on their body, something that you created, and the motive is not really that important.
Do you tend to find now, is that like a lot of clients kind of come to you? I think I asked you actually earlier, a lot of clients come to you and just say, I just want something from you. Or is it most of it's a brief?
I would say it's like mixed for sure. But I mean, it does happen. Like I'm quite like, I'm really lucky with my clients that comes for my style. I mean, that's the biggest compliment you can get, for sure.
Another quick one about hex cartridges from the Ghost cartridge range. As well as having the unique silicone foregrip system, which is the first of its kind in the UK, they also have the needle configuration on the cartridge body. Really helpful when you're in the middle of tattooing. You can quite easily see which needles that you're using. They're also made from Japanese steel as well, so they're super strong. Make sure you grab these from Star, exclusively at Star, with the code ATFCT10. If you could tattoo and only tattoo one thing, what would it be? What's your favourite thing to tattoo?
That's a hard one. What should it be? I don't know.
Is it something you get maybe the most requests for?
I don't know. Maybe a knife. I think maybe because you could do it in so many different ways. You can design the handle. You can also design the blade. But then again, you also like. Had you asked me some years ago, I would say like a feline thing. So maybe floral stuff, I would say, because there's endless opportunities there.
Timeless as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sick. That's cool. Is there a question that you want to leave for the next guest? And what would you maybe want to, what question would you want to maybe leave for the next guest?
What's most important in tattooing for you?
I like that. Sick. I think this is a good time for us to do the drawing challenge.
Yeah,
definitely.
Let's do it.
We've got a piece of A5 paper. You've got a Bic, you've got a HB, a 2B, and a 1/2 mil fine liner. I'm going to be hitting you with some 21 questions just to really throw you off. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to draw a pop art Cardi B. 3, 2, 1, go. So, what's a guilty pleasure?
A guilty pleasure. Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk. Do you have any pet peeves?
What does that mean?
Something that really annoys you.
Rich people.
What instantly calms you?
A blowjob.
What cause are you most passionate about?
Love.
Nice. Nearly 2 minutes left. What's an essential part of your daily routine? It throws you off. The questions at the same time throw me off. Brushing your teeth?
Yeah, I mean...
That's a bit of a basic answer.
It's a bit of a hard question with someone who has OCD because it's literally everything.
All right, ideal first date.
Ideal first date. I mean, someone who likes you and you vibe with. Does it have to be like one word?
No, that's good. That's good. I completely agree. All right, favorite concert, or like who would you want to go and see live? Who would it be?
Well, I've already seen Justin Bieber live, so but probably who would I like to see live? Oh, I would like to see
Alive or Dead?
Bring Me Horizon, I think.
Bring Me Horizon. Yeah. It would probably be, for me, it'd be Slipknot. Never seen them.
Oh yeah, I would love to.
But that would be, apparently that'd be sick.
Yeah.
Biggest fear?
To be alone.
Celebrity crush?
Zac Efron.
What's the wildest thing you've ever done? 30 seconds left.
I've done suspension.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's mad. Right, what's the top 3 things on the bucket list?
What is it called? Skydiving.
Yeah, that's on mine.
A
I feel like that's on everyone's, isn't it? It's got to be.
gangbang.
Yeah. How many people?
I don't know.
Many as possible.
Yeah.
That's your time up. You can finish the last one. What's the third thing on the bucket list?
What is the first thing on the bucket list? I don't know. I feel like I've done too much. Like I need a little bit chill. But
Hey, if your bucket list is empty, that means you've lived a good life.
Find love.
Yeah. Nice. I love that.
Can I still draw, or is it all?
No, it's over. Let's have a look. How did it look?
It's a word that's pussy.
That is lit. I love that. You have to sign it WAP as well, I reckon. It's got to be, surely. Sweet. That was a good one. I like that a lot.
Which one?
The drawing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Out the box.
Thank you.
So the last sort of bit, the bit of the nerdy bit, a lot of the title artists wanted to listen.
Yeah.
I guess I'd love to know really what your kind of, and we touched on it a bit earlier, what equipment you're using and what your kind of go-tos are. I guess the first question is, if you could only use one needle brand and configuration, what is that going to be?
Well, I do that already. So, but I've always used Quadron 18 round shader.
What's the machine? We're talking coil machines? Yeah, you're only on coils. I know you just recently bought a pen style rotary.
I just bought a pen. Yeah,
Come
I
to
did.
the dark side.
I did. Ooh. Now I'm cool with like innovations like that. Like I'm not trying to hate on that. Like it's natural to evolve like that. Like people were the same thing, said the same thing when the tattoo machine like came like many years ago. Like, you know, mostly I've been using Dan Cuban. I use the Mojo box and the Sidewinder V4. Lately I've been using a power liner from Dan Selfmade.
I've heard good things about them.
Huh?
I've heard good things about them.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I really like it. I think because I fell in love with tattooing and every aspect of it and like the history of it, there's just like a different feeling when you the weight, the noise, it's just a vibe. I like it. I like.
What would you, or what one piece of advice would you first of all give to an artist or a budding tattoo artist getting into the industry right now?
Loyalty.
So important.
That's the most important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. And I guess really to wind the whole thing up, I would love to know from you, what's one piece of advice that you would give to yourself, your younger self?
When I first started tattooing, or
just in general, what one piece of advice would you, if you could talk to your younger self right now, what would you say?
Learn to forgive more. Everyone is just humans, and we are on this planet trying to figure it out. I think a lot of hate and jealousy can go away with that in mind. Yeah.
Nice. Roblake, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much
for having
your
me.
time. Thank you so much for coming up and sitting down. Like, love the work. It's brilliant. It's been great to kind of just really, he probably only just scratched the surface on kind of everything that you've managed to achieve. So thank you.
Thank you. I hope I haven't scared you away.
Not at all. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode this week. Don't forget to head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave us a rating and a review as well on Spotify or podcasts, wherever you listen to them. Really helps the podcast grow. Massive thank you for all the support so far, all of the comments, and to our sponsor, Ghost Cartridges for Season 2. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is a 21st Century Tattoo.